Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name's Leanna if you're new, and welcome to episode 3 of Makeup and Mythology, a new series I'm doing on my channel where I do makeup and also tell you an ancient myth. Last time we talked about Aphrodite, the Greek goddess of beauty and love, and all her scandalous love affairs and entanglements, one of which was with Adonis, yes, the very beautiful Adonis. I talked about how he came to be and how he came to be entangled with the goddess. It's a very interesting story. Now this week I thought we would talk about Zeus, the god of the sky, and his whole life. I think he is scum. He is so scum. Yet, in various adaptations, oftentimes, he is portrayed as a good man. But he's really not, he's scum. Now, he is the king of the gods, so we find him involved in, if not at the center of, several Greek myths. And honestly, it's just pretty dang interesting. So let's just get right into it. So as I just mentioned, Zeus is the king of the gods, and in Roman mythology his name is Jupiter, just like the Jupiter in our solar system. And it is no coincidence that Jupiter is the biggest planet in our solar system. Zeus was born to the Titans Kronos and Rhea, who came before the gods and goddesses with which we are so familiar. Now it was prophesied that Kronos' children would grow up to overthrow him, and Kronos was like, well, we can't have that, so he ate his children. But Rhea protected Zeus and hid him in a cave and prevented him from being eaten. And when he grew up, he caused Kronos to throw up all his brothers and sisters. And these other gods and goddesses joined Zeus in overthrowing the Titans and taking over the world. Zeus was in charge, and he became the king of the gods and ruled over the sky. He was very powerful and cocky as well. Now, as for his romantic life, there's quite a bit of tea here. He was a fuckboy, to put it simply. He was most known for being married to Hera, the goddess of marriage and fertility, I believe, as depicted in the Disney movie Hercules. But he had been married before her. So his very first wife was Metis, aka Wisdom, who he swallowed because he didn't want her second child to dethrone him. Because, once again, it was prophesied. Like father, like son, it seems like. Just swallow all your problems. Now, some sources say that he had Hephaestus cleave his forehead open in order to save his firstborn. And out came the goddess Athena, fully armed, from Zeus's head. By literally swallowing Wisdom, Zeus gained wisdom. So Zeus's second wife was Themis, aka Divine Justice, and she gave birth to the seasons, wise laws, human justice, peace, and the fates. The three creepy old ladies who share one eyeball in the Disney movie Hercules. And the fates also dictate mortals' lives. Zeus's third wife was Eurynome, an ocean nymph, and she gave birth to the three Graces. So apparently nobody in Greek mythology is infertile. And Zeus just has to nut in everyone and everything, doesn't he? So yeah, he had a lot of children. Eventually Zeus decided that he had the hots for his sister, Demeter. You know, Demeter was just not there for it. She was like, ew, get away from me, as if. But then Zeus turned into a bull and violated her, and from their union came Persephone, who we talked about in episode 1. His next victim was Mnemosyne, aka Memory, who produced the 9 muses. Then came Leto, who bore Artemis and Apollo. Then Zeus became enamored with Hera, who didn't like him. So what did he do? Take no for an answer? No. He changed himself into a bird and played weak, and he got close to Hera. And when she held him close out of pity, he turned back to his true form and ravished her. And in order to cover her shame, Hera decided that she would marry him. And then he went on to cheat on her like 1,000 times. Imagine putting that much effort into getting someone and then just like cheating on them. Now, a lot of stories depicted Hera as being very jealous and very angry, and a lot of adaptations of Greek mythology portray her as being this very villainous, vengeful, angry woman, while Zeus is just like, you know, can't do wrong. But I mean, if your husband cheats on you like 1,000 times, wouldn't you be hella mad? Wouldn't you be entitled to be hella mad? Misogyny. Of course she's gonna be really mad. And you know, she really couldn't do anything to Zeus because he was stronger than her. And so instead, she took her anger out on the woman that he dallied with. For example, Leto, who I mentioned earlier, was actually said to be Zeus's concubine, and he must have already been married to Hera when they were doing stuff, and when he took her as a concubine, because Hera condemned Leto to bear her children in a land of complete darkness. Zeus also had countless affairs with mortal women, one of which was Semele, a Theban princess. Zeus paid her a visit one night in the dark, and she knew that she was in the presence of a god, so she slept with him. And when she found out she was pregnant, she bragged that the father of her child was Zeus, which, you know, you shouldn't do. So Hera found out, and she disguised herself as her nurse, and she asked her how she knew. And obviously she didn't really have any proof that Zeus was the father. So Hera was like, hey, why don't you ask him to reveal himself to you? So the next time that they saw each other, Zeus was like, I'll give you anything, baby. I'll give you anything that you want. And she was like, okay, well, I want to see what you look like. I want to see your true form. And he, you know, he kept his promises and stuff. So he was like, damn it, okay. And so he revealed himself. And it was a burst of glory that utterly destroyed Semele and burnt her to a crisp. Zeus took her unborn infant and sewed it up in his thigh until it was ready to emerge. And this child was Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy, and he was also never granted full Olympian status because he wasn't a full god. But because he was in Zeus's thigh, he got immortality. Zeus was also responsible for fathering the great hero Perseus, whose mother was a princess of Argos, Danae. Danae's father locked her in a tower because a prophecy said that his grandson would kill him. And Zeus was like, ooh. And he turned himself into a ray of sunshine, yes, a ray of sunshine, went into her tower and impregnated her as a ray of sunshine. She must have been so confused. Other heroes that were fathered by Zeus include Castor, Polydeuces, and even Hercules. And surprise, surprise, Hercules was not Hera's son, as opposed to what the Disney movie made it seem like. And he was a demigod, but it wasn't because Hades' minions sucked the immortality out of him. It was because he was half mortal to begin with. So yeah, a lot of adaptations do paint Zeus out to be a good guy, but no. One of his affairs was with the Spartan queen, Leda, who Zeus visited in the form of a swan. So she gave birth to an egg. And out came Helen, that's Helen of Troy, Clytemnestra, Castor, and Polydeuces. But since Leda's husband also planted his seed soon after Zeus did, the exact paternity of these 4 children was subject to question. But since they all came out of an egg, I think it's pretty darn clear. But apparently it is possible for a woman to give birth to children with separate fathers at the same time, and I learned this very recently. So yeah, we don't really know. Another mortal woman was Io, and she's famous for possibly suffering the most of Hera's wrath. And I think it's because Zeus actually loved her. He fell in love with her and seduced her under a thick layer of clouds in the sky so that Hera couldn't see what they were doing. But of course Hera was like, do you think I'm stupid? And she came down from the heavens, dispersed the clouds to find Zeus standing next to a white heifer, who of course was Io. So Hera very calmly asked Zeus if she could have the heifer, and Zeus reluctantly gave it to her because there was no reason why she couldn't have it unless it was Io, but he didn't want her to know that. And she took Io and imprisoned her under the watch of Argus, who had 100 eyes and also never slept. One would think that Io was like a global security threat or something. So Zeus sent his son Hermes, the messenger god, to get Io for him. And in disguise, Hermes managed to put the unsleeping Argus to sleep with stories and flute playing, and then Hermes killed him. Poor Argus. Poor Argus was just following orders. So when Hera found out, to mourn him, she took his eyes and placed them on her pet bird, the peacock. And that's why the peacock's tail looks like it has a bunch of eyes on it. But yeah, Hera was hella mad that Io escaped, so she sent a gadfly to chase her all over the world. I had to look this up, but a gadfly is a fly that stings livestock. And poor Io, still in heifer form, ran from country to country being stung by this stupid, annoying fly. Zeus didn't even bother changing her back. How rude. At one point, Io came across Prometheus, the Titan god of fire, chained to his rock in the Caucasus. Long story short, he's chained to a rock because he gave man fire. And, you know, Zeus was mad about it. And Prometheus told her that once she reached the Nile River, she'd be changed back to human shape and give birth to Epaphus, the son of Zeus. And, you know, from her descendants would come Hercules, the man who would set Prometheus free. The next woman was Europa, and she pretty much managed to escape Hera's wrath completely. Lucky for her. One day, she was frolicking with her girlfriends by the sea, and Zeus changed himself into a bull, and the girls ran to play with him because, you know, he approached so gently. So Europa climbed on his back, and Zeus charged into the sea, and when she realized that he was a god, she begged him not to desert her. And he was like, don't worry, baby, we're gonna go to Crete, and we're gonna make lots of babies, and they're gonna become great rulers. And she was like, okay, I guess. And she gave birth to Minos and Rhadamanthus, both wise rulers who became judges in the netherworld after death. And it just so happens that Europa is one of the 4 moons that orbits Jupiter in the solar system, and it's also known as Jupiter 2. Now, Zeus was not always successful in his romantic pursuits. The Titan goddess Asteria, and the mother of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft, was chased by Zeus across the sky after the fall of the other Titans. She escaped him only by turning herself into a quail and flinging her into the sea, and then becoming the island Ortygia. Only then did Zeus give up. Another instance of his failed pursuits is with the nymph Thetis. His thirst for woman was only surpassed by his thirst for power, because she was prophesied to give birth to a child that would overthrow its father, and Zeus was like, nah, I'm good. I don't know why he's so thirsty, but it kind of seems like he would have been better off trading places with Poseidon so that he'd be surrounded by water. And lastly, Zeus's infatuations were not only limited to women, which I thought was really interesting because we never learned about it in school. So at one point he fell in love with the Trojan prince, Ganymede, and he had the prince abducted and brought up to Mount Olympus and gave him immortality and also made him the cupbearer. Like, hey, I have a crush on you, so you're my servant now. And he also took him as a lover, which, you know, Hera was not happy about. So yeah, she's had to deal with all of Zeus's bullshit, which, you know, is a lot. There are probably a lot more instances of Zeus planting his seed, but I think the instances discussed today are enough to sustain us for a very long time. Anyway, so that brings me to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! This is the makeup look of the day. Green with a very thick winged liner. I'm into it.